Tim Brewer. I'm the CEO and co-founder at Functionally. I've had a great background. I grew up in Perth, in the northern suburbs, a place called Duncraig, right near the ocean. I went to school and get asked all the time. I didn't really do anything special. I was just like anyone else attending school and had aspirations. But I was lucky enough in my 20s to be asked to buy into an IT services company. And I took that opportunity. I was studying my MBA at the time, and we grew and exited that company in 2010. Working for the acquirer for 2 years, I took the chance to take our family to the US. And while I was there, we were in Las Vegas at a big tech conference, and one of my friends had been speaking to the team at Dropbox. And they were looking for someone to help with their global channel program for Dropbox for Business. I took the chance and hopped in the car from Las Vegas and drove across the desert through the mountains to San Francisco and literally walked into the Dropbox headquarters and got to meet some of the team for the very first time. A surprise to me, the team called me back a couple of weeks later, and I ended up doing work for over 16 months helping the Dropbox team expand their product. In 2013, Dropbox was still only around 200 to 300 people, so it was a much smaller company than it is today. And I watched Dropbox grow from about 300 people to over 1,600 people in the almost 2 years that I was working there and working with them. After my experience in the US, particularly working with Dropbox, I thought I would come back to Perth and just start another business or get involved in helping someone else grow their company. I just couldn't find anything big enough or interesting enough to do compared to the work that I was doing in the US. So I just decided to help other people out. I was lucky enough to get involved with a bunch of different companies and also invest into a few companies, well-known companies here in WA. But all along that journey, what I continue to see is people really struggling as their company grew to ensure that the structure of their team matched what they were trying to do in market. So how Functionally came to be is more often than not when we were out looking at companies or talking to them about investment, often they would have challenges around their organization structure. And so I would get asked to go in and assist helping the leadership team and the CEO structure their organization to match their mission. As I would do that, I didn't want to be a consultant. I definitely didn't want to hang around and help them enact that change. I was helping impart healthy org design culture into the way they thought and led change. And one of the organizations in San Francisco that I was assisting to do that didn't enjoy the process of spreadsheets and diagrams that we had and the way I assisted. I'm like, hey, this should be software. And they actually built a prototype piece of software. And one day I rolled up to assist and they're like, oh, hey, we built this software. We're happy. It's like not our IP. We're happy to leave it with you, but we think it should be software. I had a bunch of reasons why I thought it shouldn't be software. So I spent 12 months while I was doing other things trying to kill the idea. I took the problem itself to Startup Weekend. I met with investors across the US and here, and the more people I'd talked to, the more I realized that there wasn't a very good, there was no tool actually for leaders to lead their own org change. And there was a really huge opportunity in their market for us to solve the problem of taking the friction out of that process for everyday leaders. After a year of doing that, I was lucky enough to have someone I had invested in previously, Damien Brahmanis, and he helped me build the prototype and went on to become my co-founder. Most organizational leaders, when they think about how their organization's structured, think about an org chart or a organogram. They're who reports to who in the organization. Functionally is uniquely different, and we help leaders not only articulate who reports to who, but who does what in the organization and where they do it, allowing them to correctly model what their organization does today and also plan what it needs to do in the future and action change to get them to where they need to be in their organization structure. One of the most challenging things starting a global software company from somewhere like Perth, a fairly remote city, is it's very hard to get access to customers. And the biggest challenge in a startup is the learning that you take from working out how someone will talk about the problem that you're solving in a customer's mind, their thought process around that, their mental model for how they solve that problem. And in software, my belief, particularly product-led software, is your job is to discover that and then turn that into an experience in product. And obviously our customers exist not here in Perth. And so we need to be creative in the way that we got access to those customers and interviewed them. A lot of that involved getting on a plane and flying around the world. And now we can do that at pretty high volumes, people trialing our software, getting on Zoom calls and connecting them that way. So I think one of the biggest challenges is if you're building a product out of Perth is actually getting access to your customers where they exist. I think we would have done the wrong thing if we had just come to the local market, because it's just not the volume of large customers that we needed to really prove out what we were doing. I think my highest point is probably not been with us yet. I, as any founder does, believe that the future is going to be better than where we're at today. But so far, the highest point is actually building a really great team and solving problems together. No one does anything by themselves, and even if you hear a narrative of someone achieving something or being successful by themselves, if you dig in and spend long enough watching, actually they for sure will have lots of people around them, supporting them, championing them, or being there helping create the value that they're working on. So for me, my most exciting moments when I get together with the team, particularly post-COVID, which has been pretty challenging, but we just got together with a team for our global offsite retreat, and that was just fantastic. I think if we continue to build a team of the quality that we've got as we grow, we've got the right foundation to be as successful as the opportunity sitting in front of us. Starting a B2B software company in Perth probably seems counterintuitive if you wanted to go to the place where there's the most experienced and the most investors. But starting in Perth has a lot of advantages. One is that you can start kind of in stealth. There's very few people looking at the Perth market trying to look at particularly competitors or other aligned industries. And so you can build a way here without a lot of visibility from other parts of the world. The second thing that's pretty good is lifestyle's good. You have the flexibility if you're working in different time zones to work in those time zones and then have the time during the day in the local region. So if that you're the type of person that can do that, I think that comes at a huge advantage. And the other one's a little bit of a hack, and that is you have to be willing to travel. And when you do jump on a plane and go and visit somewhere else, people are a lot more willing to spend time with you knowing you're only there for a few days. And so I would argue that when I travel to the US or I travel to London or Europe, I get to see in maybe a week or two as many people as I'd see if I actually worked there in that environment. And people are more willing to stop and have a coffee, have dinner and catch up because I'm only there for a small window of time. And so as long as you're willing to get on a plane and invest into those relationships around the world, I think you can absolutely build something enormous out of Perth, Australia. And probably the last advantage is being a little undiscovered and being in an environment where we're not based in US dollars. There's a little bit of an arbitrage around us feeling like it's expensive to buy a house here or we can get a great salary here. But actually comparatively to other markets, it's still slightly cheaper to get things done here in Perth. We're very, very lucky to have a lot of people here in the community that have returned from overseas or work here for overseas companies. There's thousands of different people. In fact, I've got some of our big software relationships at Functionally. We actually have our account manager for a global company based on the East Coast of US right here, a couple of suburbs away from my house. And that's a great example of the type of talent and relationships that you can have being based in here. Because technology is not the predominant industry in Perth, it's very tight-knit, a highly relational community. And I think one of the big opportunities we have is to give back into that community. And I try to do that myself. I encourage others that I work with to do the same. I think if we're to be successful here in Perth, helping each other be successful is the best possible thing we can do. We don't compete with each other. We compete with the rest of the world. And if we can see that for what it is, helping each other compete on the global stage is the best possible thing we can do for each other.